A lot of models are down on Michigan State going into the 2024 season. Why is that? Where are the redeeming qualities? And what games will be the best to watch for our Michigan State Spartans? Let's find out.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below on YouTube how you are feeling about the season coming up. And hey, lockedonspartans@gmail.com if you ever want to reach out with a comment, a question, any concerns you just want to get off your chest, whether it be in the world of college football or just life. Again, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. We're going to be joined here in a little bit by Kelley Ford of kfordratings.com. That's a website we've referenced here and there during this offseason, but this man is all things college football. When we're talking about projections for the season, yes, this guy is one of the best models out there that can give a good preview of what is to come in a given fall. Now, as you're going to find out at the start of this conversation, Michigan State, not too high in Kelley Ford's rankings, but it's not all bad because whether it's Michigan State's opponents or Michigan State itself, there are redeeming qualities for this upcoming season. We also talk about, the highest watchability rankings for Michigan State and then a little bit of fall wedding talk. But yes, let's just get into it right now with our guy, Kelley Ford. Folks, I am fired up about this one. Over at kfordratings.com, they got projections, the watchability rankings, even exceptional merchandise, which we will talk to at the end of this chat. It is Kelley Ford. This man is all things college football. Kelley, happy week 0, by the way. How on earth are we doing as we head into college football season?
I'm doing really well, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's the most exciting time of year, right? We're getting ready to get into it. I love the college football season, in particular the regular season. So that is kicking off here this weekend with just a little teaser of a couple games in week 0 before we dive in head first in week 1. But we've waited all summer for this, all the projections, all the numbers, all the talk. It's time to actually play these football games. I'm very, very excited.
Nothing beats regular season, but it's very hard to beat what you've been doing in this offseason. We're going to start with the projections, and we're going to try to sprinkle in an optimistic side here for Michigan State. But first, let's address the elephant in the room, so to speak, here. Your projections have matched what we've been seeing in Vegas, the S&P Plus, a few other analytical rankings out there. Conference wins for Michigan State, you have projected at just 2.6, overall just 4.7 wins. That kind of matches what we've been seeing elsewhere. So first and foremost, Kelley, do you realize how sad those numbers have made us here, and do you feel responsible for any bad feelings that we've had this offseason?
Well, I certainly can understand how sad it might make Michigan State fans. I'm hoping that I'm not at all responsible or culpable in what the numbers are actually suggesting. Of course, I did not have anything to do with how we get to this. This is strictly an objective view of the data.
Fair.
But yeah,
okay.
but yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, I can understand why Michigan State fans might be disappointed. And again, I think the future might be brighter than what the current picture is painting, right? With Jonathan Smith coming in and everything that happened under Mel Tucker, even though, 2021 was a special year, but since then it slid backwards in the wrong direction. If you look at the 10-year history here in the K Ford ratings of Michigan State, so going back really of the CFP era, there have only been 3 years, counting last year, 3 years in which Michigan State was outside the top 50 of my power ratings at the end of the year. And for more than half of these years, Michigan State has ended the year in the top 35. Of course, the high point would have been in the CFP era. For me, in the power rating standpoint, the 2014 season, where Michigan State finished number 7 in the power ratings. I know the 2015 season is the one that ended in the CFP berth. I had you guys a little bit lower in the power ratings that year than the year before, coming at number 18. But I think that the recent history, and I know we've gone through different coaches, the recent history suggests that Michigan State is a program that annually can and maybe even should operate, in the top 40 of a power rating system. Now, we can talk about what top 40 translates with regard to wins in the stacked Big Ten now, but certainly we expect Michigan State to get back on the road to being an above average FBS team, because 2023 was below average at number 86. I am projecting number 70 for this year, so still slightly below FBS average, but we're trending in the right direction for Sparty.
Yeah, let's try to sprinkle in a smile right now, because of all the numbers that are on your website, and trust me, folks, there's plenty of numbers that you want to pour over here at kfordratings.com. What do you like about Michigan State going into year one under Jonathan Smith? Is there any redeeming qualities with this team in your projections right now?
So for me, it's a defensively led unit, like a defensive strong team.
Sure.
So I've got on last year, let's look at last year's numbers first, and then we'll see how that compares to this year's. Last year, like I said, power rated number 86. The offense was number 118 out of 100. That
sounds right. Yeah.
Out of 133, out of 133, like that's just bad, especially when you put into context, this is a Power 5, now Power 4 program playing in one of the largely considered Power 2 conferences. Number 118 is not going to get it done, and it didn't last year. The defense was number 56. So again, that's not what Michigan State fans want to see. That is the worst defense, minus 2022. The 2022 year was bad on the defensive side of the ball, but if you take out 2022, number 56 was the worst year-end ranking of the defense in the CFP era. So the defense was not good by any stretch, but it was much better than the offense. I expect more of the same this year, except I do think this defense is going to get back to pretty darn good. I've got them right now number 28. The offense is still only projecting number 113. We will see. I think they can probably perform at a higher level than that. The numbers, the model just needs to see it a little bit before it buys in entirely. But the good news is I think the defense is going to be strong. I have you guys, like I said, number 28. And here's what's even more important than just that. If you look at the collection of opposing FBS offenses that Michigan State plays this year, so all 12 regular season opponents, what is their offense on average? It is the 63rd most difficult, or put another way, the 6th easiest collection of opposing FBS offenses that any Power 4 team is going to face this year. So not only is Michigan State's defense pretty darn good in the top 30, on a week-in, week-out basis, Michigan State will not be facing very high-powered offenses, at least by my numbers. Now, there are some exceptions, right? You have to go to Oregon, who has the number one offense in the country. But outside of that, Ohio State right now, I'm projecting number 16. Those are the only two top 30 units that I'm projecting on that side of the ball. So really, this Michigan State defense should have the advantage, the decided advantage in most cases, in almost every game this year, minus those back-to-back games against Ohio State and Oregon. To me, if you're looking for a bright spot, it's that. I also am very encouraged by what the special teams unit did last year. Again, it was not a good year for Michigan State by Michigan State standards, but the special teams, by my numbers, was a top 10 unit in the country. Of course, you'd much rather have your offenses and defenses playing at that level, but it's not the worst thing to have a special teams unit that can play at a high level, and I'm projecting them to be pretty darn good in that phase as well this year.
That makes me always feel smart when someone brilliant like you, brings up something that we've talked about on the show, because when your ratings dropped a few weeks or months ago, I've lost, track of time, but that's one of the first things we brought up. It's not necessarily where Michigan State is in the numbers, but where other teams are with the offenses. There are 7 teams that have an offense that are outside your projected top 70, and that's not even including Prairie View A&M. No projections on that FCS team, so you could really chalk it up as 8. There's going to be a lot of games that are going to seem like a race to 20 points for Michigan State. So yes, with the special teams just talked about, that could very well be the decider of games moving forward here. So it's always nice. Yes, the numbers aren't great for Michigan State, but look around. It's not, great shakes for other teams. Now, do those other teams have really good defenses? Yeah, but we're trying to stay upbeat here on today's episode of Locked On Spartans. Plenty more to come with our guy Kelley Ford of K Ford Ratings. But first, game time. Folks, less than 2 weeks until kickoff, and let's open up the Gametime app right now to see what the best seats are for MSU versus Florida Atlantic. Yeah, that's going to play right there. This is on the 50-yard line. This is what is 31 rows up, $121 per ticket. That's not with fees included. No, that is the upfront price. These tickets, yes, guys, like this isn't, late November of last season where there's not a lot of people going to games. This will be a sold-out game. If you want to get great seats at a great deal on a great app, Gametime is where to do it. Now, why do I love Gametime? Sure, they save you money with their flash deals throughout the week. Or, hey, let's say you're walking up to Spartan Stadium and you don't even have tickets yet. You can nab tickets at a great price with their savings. I also just love how simple it is. I just referenced that. Yeah, you're not going to get popped or surprised with surprise fees or taxes at the end of the transaction. No. It is upfront, with Gametime. It is 2 taps, and the tickets are sent straight to your phone. Guys, start saving immediately with Gametime because they save you money right when you sign up for an account. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. You already know that by now. And they want to make football season even more enjoyable for you. And we're even going beyond just the bets right now. Like, you want to spice up your college football Saturdays, your NFL Sundays? Well, of course they have the lines, the props, the futures to do all of that. You already know it. All right, they're America's #1 sportsbook for a reason. But guys, get this, and no, not just new customers. This is for all customers. They are doing something a little different right now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockdown to get that started. And guys, hey, next Friday, our Michigan State Spartans right now 11.5-point favorites over the Florida Atlantic Owls. If you're feeling good about that, again, guys, America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com/lockdown and download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, before we get back into the mix here with our guy, Kelley Ford, hey, college football, it's back, and it is not too late to catch up on all the conferences before the season kicks off. Talking SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12. Get it all from Locked On, stable of college experts, by subscribing to the Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause full chaos in their new conferences? All of that with our guy Spencer McLaughlin, host of Locked On College Football. So go over, follow, and subscribe to Locked On College Football Podcast. Of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. As we, kind of go through the projections here, is there anything that your model doesn't account for that Michigan State is going on right now? Like a quarterback transferring in, not just transferring in, but also with his former offensive staff, for example, or any incoming transfers, a head coach's previous success, or how in depth does the model really get with, this much shakeup in an offseason like our Spartans had?
Yeah, for sure. And so anything at the player level in terms of transfers, returning production, all of that, that's going to be captured and accounted for. And we've got multipliers or scalars to help determine, the production that a student athlete had last year at a G5 school. How's that going to translate into at Michigan State? Similarly, if you've got someone who's going from Michigan State to, Central Michigan, you're going to downgrade that product, or you're going to upgrade that production because you're expected to produce more at the G5 level than you would have been able to at the Power 4. So we have those types of things in there. Now, the things that the model is not going to account for, at least explicitly yet, and I'm working on getting this in there, but have not had a chance to back test at a level that I feel comfortable to include in the model, is the things like coaching grades. And so the model, it's aware that a coaching change was made. It doesn't necessarily understand the full impact of that or the scope of that. And so that will play itself out as games start to get played here. But, my numbers would suggest, what Jonathan Smith was able to do at Oregon State as a program that historically, I know they've had their flashes, but historically has not been a powerhouse in the Pac-12 or on the West Coast. What he was able to achieve there is better than what a lot of coaches have been able to achieve in Corvallis. And so that to me would be an encouraging sign for Michigan State that maybe the model doesn't necessarily see yet. So you can take these projections with that context as well and say, okay, if Kelley's saying 4.6, 4.7 wins this year, maybe the upgrade at the coaching position on the coaching staff, maybe that's worth, a few tenths of a game or a half a game or whatever it is. I also think it's really important if we look at Michigan State's schedule this year. This is captured by the model, so I'm not directly answering your question, but we talk about this win total of what I'm projecting, 4.5, 5 and 7 is the most likely record. I have 6 games on the schedule out of a 12-game slate. 6 of them are currently projecting to be one-score games. Michigan State is on the sub 50% win expectancy in 5 of those 6. So you're going to be, by my numbers, a slight underdog in those games. But because those are projected to be such close games, if Michigan State's able to get close game luck and win 50% or more of the one-possession games this year, I think Michigan State fans are going to be pretty pleased with the win-loss record at the end of the year. It's going to be imperative that they win those close games, though, because there are some games on the schedule. You're looking at that Ohio State, that Oregon, the Michigan, Iowa, where there will be a decided underdog for Michigan State in those ones. But really, I mean, most of the games you're looking at this year are going to be a toss-up one way or the other. Yeah. Can Michigan State, with this new coaching staff, with a lot of turnover on the roster, can they take advantage and close in these games? That's going to go a long way in determining the success of the season, I think.
No shortage of those coin toss games in the month of November. You got to get through that gauntlet of the middle of the season. Of course, it's the Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, Michigan gauntlet. But on the other side, a lot of those coin toss games, it's Indiana, it's Illinois on the road, and then you end with 2 home games against Purdue and Rutgers. Not necessarily, titans of college football necessarily, but of those 4 teams, is there one that you're just really liking that you think is being a little slept on by, other fans like myself?
I think probably when you look at this, I mean, Rutgers for me is probably the best of those 4 teams, the 4 opponents there for Michigan State. Now, Rutgers does come to Michigan State for that game, so that's, of course, going to help. Yep. Michigan State also, the week before against Purdue, plays on a Friday night, so you'll have an extra day to prepare for that Rutgers game. Let me double-check that really quickly and make sure that Rutgers is not coming off of no, they're on a normal Saturday the week before at home against Illinois, so you're going to have an extra day to prepare for that game. Might not sound like a lot, but at the end of the year, an extra day of prep, an extra day of rest could mean something. So I think Rutgers is the team that probably out of those 4, again, all 4 of these projecting to be 1-score games, win expectancies between 37 and 51%. So, I mean, if Michigan State can go 3-1 down the stretch to end the year, you're probably feeling okay. If it's 2-2 or worse, maybe not. If you can somehow go 4-0 in these games, you probably had a really good year from a win-loss record that maybe folks weren't expecting. So I think 2-2 is probably the most likely record for those. But Rutgers, to me, out of those 4 teams, they're probably the most dangerous. They certainly have the best defense out of those teams, but their offense might be the worst out of those teams. It's possible that the model for various reasons is underrating Rutgers' offense just a little bit. I think some folks are maybe calling on them to be a sleeper pick, a dark horse, to not make it to Indianapolis, of course. The Big Ten is way too top heavy, I think, for that. But to end the season higher in the conference standings than a lot of people would expect of a Rutgers team that hasn't had a ton of success in the Big Ten really since since joining the conference back in 2014 it was.
I'm kind of with you with Rutgers because we got some local high schools around here that have a harder schedule than Rutgers will have this year. I don't know how on earth it shook out for them. Obviously, every team's going to go through this in the new Big Ten, harder schedules, easy schedules. Wow, they got the party started on the right side over there in Piscataway. But then again, what terrifies me is their quarterback situation. When I say terrifies, I mean, I don't trust him whatsoever. It's the transfer from Minnesota, Kelley Ford, I think is how you say his name. Kelley, I have more faith in you throwing the ball with your foot than this guy with his actual throwing arm. Not to be just horrendously mean towards a college kid, but wow, I just don't see it there. So that could be a grimy, ugly 1st to 20, maybe even 1st to 14 game at the end of the season. We'll see what the health looks like for both teams there, but Rutgers defense is one to be feared. So it kind of just mirrors what we've been saying over here on this show. Now, hey, we just brought up grimy games, but you over there at kfordratings.com, you grade the watchability of these games, one of the best graphics to look at ahead of any week in college football. Michigan State, what are going to be the most watchable games here for our Spartans here? What do you got? Are we going to be a fun team to watch in any capacity, you think?
Yeah, so just to level set what we're looking at here with regard to what watchability is, because there is some confusion. Your listeners, you guys probably know, but some see it and think it means something it doesn't. So watchability is not my projection on how many eyeballs are going to be on the game, what the TV rating of the game is going to be. It's not trying to capture how big of a fan base the team has or how big a brand is. It has nothing to do with that. What I call watchability is 2 factors, and it's weighted. So these are not equal inputs, but there's 2 inputs here. And it's what is the projected quality of this game? So the average Kelley Ford rating of the 2 teams involved, that's the bigger component here. Are these 2 good football teams, or at least on average, are these good football teams? So the second piece, which is also important but weighted less, is what's the projected competitiveness of this game? So is it going to be a close game? Is it going to be something that comes down to the end of the game? At least is that what we're projecting? Of course, we don't know how the game's actually going to play out, but using, pre-game projections, is it projected to be a close game? because Michigan State is playing, like I said, in 6 projected 1-score games this year, which is a decent number. There are some teams out there who are playing even more than that. I think I've got USC and Colorado as the 2 teams that are projected to play in 10 1-score games this year,
Wow.
which is just incredible. But from a 6, I mean, average, that's you're doing okay. You're going to be in a lot of close games. Now, the quality component for Michigan State coming into the year number 70, that's a little bit lower than we'd like to see in the Power 4, right? But playing a lot of teams that are going to be power rated around them is going to help. I've got Michigan State as I look at here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games that score a 7 or better, and my watchability score on a 0 to 10 scale. So 5-ish is about average, 10 is like your must-see, can't-miss game, and then it goes down from there. So 5 games that are 7 or better, I'll run through them kind of in chronological order. I've got at Maryland with a 7.2 in week 2. I do have Michigan State with a 28% chance to win that one, so it is just barely a 1-possession game, but it is currently projecting as 1 possession. The Ohio State game is a 7.4. Now, I only give Michigan State a 4% chance to win that game, a 4% win expectancy. But because it's at home, that helps Michigan State's win expectancy here, getting the home field advantage instead of having to go to Columbus. And partly because Ohio State is, the number 2 power-rated team in my numbers. Basically, a lot of games that involve Ohio State are going to be rated pretty highly in watchability because Ohio State is one of the best teams in college football, and they account for half of the average quality component here. I've got 7.1 for the game at Oregon. Again, you're not looking like a big chance to win that one, to 2% win expectancy. But because Oregon is a good team, that's going to rate highly. After the off week, you've got Iowa at home with a 7.7, which is the highest watchability score that I have. And I can already hear people saying, wait, no, Kelley, you just said Iowa is watchable. They are not watchable.
Right.
Again, I'm not talking about TV ratings. It has nothing to do with high-powered offenses or scoring a lot of points. My numbers do expect the Iowa-Michigan State game to be pretty close. Again, the defense for Iowa, number 1 in the country, the defense for Michigan State in the top 30. Both of these offenses are sub 100, so I don't know how many points are going to be scored in this game, but it should be a competitive game, and the fact that it's at Michigan State helps the score as well because Iowa, the higher power-rated team, has to go on the road here, so you got the home field advantage for the Spartans. 7.1 at Michigan the next week, and then to close the year, 7.3 against that Rutgers team that we talked about. So those are the games that score at least a 7. The lowest watchability, there's only 2 that are below a 6. You got 5.5 to open the year against Florida Atlantic and a 0.6 against Prairie View A&M. Prairie View A&M, not a very good FCS team.
Yeah.
A 99% win expectancy for Michigan State in that one.
Not done just yet with Kelley Ford of kfordratings.com. But first, guys, got to talk your ears off about Ibotta. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do these have in common? Well, you're probably buying a ton of them even as the summer is ending, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all of your summer essentials. Hey, what is Ibotta? Well, I should probably tell you. It's a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries, beauty supplies, even toys. Make sure you are beating inflation no matter what you are purchasing. And you're going to like this one, guys. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of a shopping trip, a flight even, keeping an eye on, or hey, just a little fancy dinner for yourself. Treat yourself with what you get back from Ibotta. It is time you join the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. So go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play Store or the App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB. So we're going to end this thing here. And before we even get to this, thanks a ton for your time, all your knowledge, your insight. But we're going to try to blend, plug in your website. Again, I've already said it a few times, kfordratings.com, but also the merchandise you have. Going to blend that with just my personal life over here, make this selfish little bit about me. Great apparel on your website, just like basic college football Saturday, only casuals leave early is another shirt design you have. And then there's fall weddings. Kelley, I will be attending a wedding here for a beautiful couple. I wish them well, of course. Their decision-making for dates is a little puzzling, but whatever. Attending a wedding on one of those games you just mentioned, Iowa versus Michigan State. Now, I'm not a full-blown homer and think MSU is going to go to the college football playoff. I think they're going to go 7-5. But I think right now that is going to be an upset alert game for Iowa. That's going to be a massive one. I will be somewhere in a wedding venue or some banquet. My question is, can I wear that sweatshirt to the reception and or ceremony? Like, if I get it in black, that's at least formal, or is that you want to pump the brakes there for me?
Well, you can certainly get it in black. We do offer that. Matt, you're a better friend than I am. The people that invited me to a wedding on October 19th, which I believe is the date that you're talking about here, I would have said, hey, wish you all the best. Wish I could be there to celebrate with you. Unfortunately, you picked the day I'm unavailable. No, I think you can wear that there. I mean, I think they get to expect there's going to be people that are going to be on their phones watching college football. Like, let me just, because it's not just about who's my team playing, right? Like, band fall weddings is much bigger than just my team, because there are fans out there. There are guys and girls out there who say, oh, I'm getting married in the fall. It's not a big deal though, because my team's on a bye. My team's off that week. Okay. Yeah, that's one approach. Your team might be off this week, but how about next year? Is your team going to be on an off week every year on your anniversary, or is this going to, like, you know what I mean? So there's that. You also then have to consider, if we broaden our scope and think about outside of just your team, and this is why I like the weekly watchability charts that I put out as well. October 19th, here are the games that you're going to be inside a wedding venue not being able to watch on a big screen TV as God intended. You've got Georgia at Texas, one of the 3 games that scores a 10.0 in watchability. You will not be able to watch that one properly on a big screen TV. Alabama at Tennessee, a game that 2 years ago was one of the games of the regular season. Auburn at Missouri. Missouri, a team that's pushing for a playoff spot this year. Auburn, a team that I think is a lot better than their record might show at the end of the year because of how difficult the schedule is. Miami at Louisville. Those are 2 of the teams outside of Florida State and Clemson that many are picking to maybe make a run to Charlotte, and that's a huge game in the ACC. Kansas State at West Virginia. Kansas State, one of the favorites in the Big 12 that has to go on the road, tricky road trip to Morgantown. TCU at Utah. Again, another big Big 12 game this year. The list goes on and on. Kentucky, Florida, USC, Maryland out of the Big 10, LSU, Arkansas, UCF, Iowa State. All of that's what people are missing when they schedule a fall wedding and say, oh, well, my team's on a bye or my team's not playing anybody that's really that good. I understand that, but there's implications for future years. 1, 2, you're missing out on other games. And then 3, there's just no common courtesy for the people that you're going to be inviting that now have to make that decision. So, Matt, I fully endorse you wearing the band fall wedding sweatshirt. We get it in black, get it in whatever color you want. But yeah, that's difficult. And my friends know I've turned down more than a few of, hey, I'm really happy for you. Can't wait to celebrate sometime in the future. Unfortunately, I'm not available on Saturday in the fall to come join you in the in-person celebration.
As you're going through all those games, I'm just starting to think, like, can I doctor like a positive COVID test or something like that without my wife knowing that I doctored it, but still being miraculously healthy the very next day? We got 2 months to workshop something here. This should be no problem. So, but hey, you know what? My fallback plan: ordering a nice sweatshirt on kfordratings.com. Kelley, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Anything you want to plug before we let you go into the rest of the regular season here?
No, I really appreciate it. You can find all my content, K-Ford Ratings on X, at K-Ford Ratings, or kfordratings.com is the website. Like you said, all sorts of things on there, including the apparel. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come on, talk Michigan State. I'm hopeful for Michigan State fans' sake that my projections are a little low on Sparty. And like I said, I do think that beyond this year, like Michigan State's on an upward trajectory. And I think that the future with Jonathan Smith is bright. I think Michigan State can get back to a place where, the expectation is to win 8-9 games a year and have an occasional year where maybe you're popping off a 10-win season, making a run for a spot in Indy or a spot in the playoffs. So I certainly think Michigan State has that potential. I'm not sure it's this year just with the new coaching staff, but moving forward, I do think Michigan State can reestablish itself among the stronger teams in the Big Ten.
Kelley, cannot thank you enough for all your time, insight once again. Folks, we are going to be back in a hot second. Mailbag question, maybe even 2, coming up in a hot minute. All right, let's run through this mailbag here for a little bit. LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com, or hey, reach out to us out on Twitter. Sheehan_sports is my account if you ever want to bark my way. We're going to start with Lieutenant Bishop. He writes in, how many times do you want to see MSU whip out the Shadows jerseys? Soon is my quick answer. Use those in the first month. I'm not even opposed to using them for the Florida Atlantic game or even the Prairie View A&M game. All right, I know that might be ridiculous to use these alternate jerseys or these hyped up jerseys. They don't like when you use the word alternative for these jerseys, but regardless, whatever you want to call them, let's just start getting some good memories out of these jerseys immediately. You talk about getting like fired up about like the least important thing from last year. This is one of the things that bothered me about last season is that they used the Shadows jerseys ahead of the Michigan game. And I know like you want to hype up the team and give them some extra motivation. We all knew what was going to happen that game. I'm actually shocked it was kept within 50 points, if we're going to be completely honest about it. MSU was walking into a wood chipper regardless that game. To debut your brand new, hyped up jerseys for your own execution, I think was a ridiculous move. You just scrapped the Shadows jerseys for all of last year, the second that ESPN.com or USA Today story drops about Mel Tucker last year, okay? We'll give it a try next year when things are a little better and you can maybe start collecting some good memories right off the bat with these jerseys, because when I see those jerseys now, all I think about is Michigan State getting pile-driven into the ground by Michigan roughly 90 minutes after Hitler trivia night. Like, not the greatest memories associated with those jerseys. So you're going to keep them around. I hope they use them very early. Let's just get a week 1 win against Florida Atlantic. Or if you really want like a all but guaranteed win, no disrespect to Prairie View A&M, just go ahead and just wear the jerseys for that game. And then maybe bring them back for that Friday night game against Purdue later on this season. But again, like this is maybe 80th in the list of things that you should be whining and crying about based on what happened last season. But don't put it by me to get fired off about something so trivial like jerseys and special alternatives. But yeah, I really hope that you see them a little bit this season and time it appropriately. My God, that was just a ridiculous decision last year in a season full of ridiculous decisions on and off the field. Anyway, we're trying to keep it upbeat here. So this is why we're going to end the show with Jeff's question. Absolutely love this one. Try listening to this one and just not getting a chill down your spine. This is going to get you fired up for next Friday. Preparing mentally for our first offensive play under Smith. Of course, it will be a touchdown, Jeff says. The options of how we're laid out like ice cream flavors. Which do you choose? The options from Jeff are obvious the way as Walker took it to the house on his first play, but with Nathan Carter or Aiden Childs, or a flea flicker from Carter back to Childs to Montori Foster for a bomb, or maybe a tight end hook and ladder to Velling with the streaking Glover taking the lateral, or would you trade it all for an Ed Woods pick 6? Love the show. Keep it up. Go Green. I love the question, Jeff. All fantastic options there. The pick 6, obviously very exciting. That's one of the most exciting plays in football because it's rarely expected. Very hard to just be sitting in the bleachers or in front of a TV and think, you know what's going to happen here? Pick 6. Like that is a euphoric feeling, but man, nothing started a season better than the way Kenneth Walker started 2021. I got to say, as fun as a flea flicker would be, it would be awesome seeing Aiden Childs just uncork a 60-yard bomb right up the sideline to Montori Foster, just show off that cannon of an arm and show that, yeah, we got a quarterback that could absolutely push the ball down the field. I got to reward a guy from last year, a guy that stuck it out, came back to the team, had a real rough last 2 months of the season last year, and, of course, we're talking about Nathan Carter. The guy that shouldered a lot of the load in the run game last year did not get paid off for it by any touchdowns in the last 2 months of the season. So, you know what? Okay, game starting, ball on the 25-yard line, hand it right off to Nate Carter, and just like it happened in 2021, right down the sidelines, he is gone for 6 points. Let's get Spartan Stadium into a frenzy with that, and let's just put a smile on Nathan Carter's face for all intents and purposes. Like, the kid deserves it, for crying out loud. Anyway, love that question. You cannot go wrong with an answer there, but yes, let's just do it. Outside zone run, right off the left tackle. Bang. See you later. That's 6 points. All right, guys, we are going to be back tomorrow. You already know it because it's Locked On Spartans. We do this 5 days a week here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now go take care of yourselves the rest of the day. Love you all. Go Green.